Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You know, it's funny. Yesterday was pretty amazing. But the cool part of it for me is the feeling that I have is I actually felt like everyone was so unique, so different. And that actually made me feel even more empowered to just be myself. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Robyn and Warwick, for doing this and for having me here. It's all very exciting. So I need a clicker. Is it up there? There we go. Okay. All right. My name is Nichol. Today I want to share with you something that I call the universal language. Well, it's actually kind of funny. I thought I called it that, and then I read The Alchemist, and I realized that it wasn't new, and that was kind of a thing. So that was kind of one of those things. You know, you think you come up with something, and then you realize it's been pretty common. This idea of this language, it's like the piece that joins everything. It's the feelings that we have. It's the sense that draws us to a higher form of being. The connection that we all feel with horses, the reason that we're all here. There is a fabric in the earth that pulls us to a pure way of being. That's the essence of what this is for me, okay? Now, what I want to share with you just first as we get started is just a little bit about myself. So I would say that there's three kind of elements of what I enjoy to do. And the first would be what we call leadership. The word is kind of funny now. It seems like it's maybe watered down. But the idea has two elements. And the first element of leadership is what's happening in me. So leadership is not really about making stuff do stuff. It's really about being something within ourselves that actually creates draw. So someone that you would look up to, someone that you would want to be around, someone that gives a feeling that allows you to feel safe and comfortable. This, to me, is leadership. The other side of leadership is gaining the ability to allow something to feel safe in your presence. And this is where we have kind of cool experiences with horses. When they feel safe with us, that they do things that allow us to feel deep connections, okay? And that, to me, is the basis of all things. I call this the green zone. If we're talking about green, yellow, and red, different spaces where our horses exist. The green is where they feel safe. It's where we feel deep connections, and we desire to build our relationships off of that center. The second is a horse's athleticism. My entire goal around athleticism is to honor their body in their highest form, to understand what their bones, their muscles, their ligaments are to do so that they might move in empowered ways. Okay, I want my horses to feel powerful in their being and have their bodies honored in their form of motion. Okay, that's maybe the athletic side. And then the empowered side. So we have leadership, we have athleticism, and empowerment. And empowerment is chasing the soul desire that every one of you has to go out and do things, to do hard things, to reach for the things your soul calls for. And I actually have to say this because this is something that I've observed actually in Tyler, as crazy as it seems. He's like a soul adventurer. You know, like everything I ever see from Warwick is about Tyler is he's off doing crazy things. And I know all of us have these desires. We all have these feelings. But the challenge is, how do we honor relationship and go out and do hard things? Okay, so there's a soulfulness that pulls us. Now the key to me is to be able to honor the sacred in all of these elements. Whether we're taking adventures, that there's a sacredness that we can honor in the relationship, that we're not selling out and dominating or having to force and make. And this element of life where there is some level of dominance in the horse community and in relationships causes us to worry about how we might walk in empowered states. We don't know how to do it, because we don't want to dishonor the horse's connection. All right, so the goal is to seek the sacred in all of these elements, to honor the horse through relationship, to honor the body through the way we work with them, but then to be brave and take adventures and become empowered in our relationships and do the hard things that your soul calls you to. Okay, now, in this element of these three pieces, there is this thread of connection. And that connection is what pulls all of us. It's what's got us all here. It's what set the tone for everything that we're doing. There's something that pulls us to be in connection and community. And this is the element that I call the universal language. It's this peace that we feel when we're in connection with a horse. And for me, that's not just in the leadership elements. It threads through the athletic elements. It also threads through the empowerment pieces. So this is actually not something that is about a thing we're doing, but it's a way we are. It's a way. Okay, and when we're in that space, it's so fulfilling. Okay, and this is really the goal of what we're trying to achieve, is to recognize that there is something more going on. And the key then is, how can we achieve that? How do we get to a place where it becomes how we move and how we act? So today what I want to do is I just want to build a little bit of a case, not for what we're doing, but for how we can go about doing a thing that allows us to engage in this space more commonly, that it can be part of who we are, that we can walk in that space and that way of being. I call it the universal language, or the alchemist did, and I just somehow got it. It's the art of awareness and connection. So for us to get involved in that space, there has to be an awareness that we have and an understanding of how to connect on a deeper level. So what I would like to share with you is a process that I've kind of developed for myself and that I share with my students. And I break it down into 3 steps. The first step is an awareness of what's happening within us. Okay. The second is an awareness of what's happening outside of our bodies. And the third is how we interact when we connect. Okay. On all of these elements, there is always going to be moments where we are triggered by self-preservation, where our sense of our sympathetic system is going to have an empowered effect, okay, and it's going to close us up. But as we learn to understand these elements, we can actually allow our frequency to move, which allows us to feel the space around us. Most of us, unfortunately, exist in a state where we are constantly running self-preserving thoughts. And what do you think that does to our energy? Do you think it expands us and opens us, or do you think it closes us off? Okay, it closes us off. So then what attempt or what intent do you feel our horses or those around us are receiving? When we're acting in self-preserving natures and we're closed off, but yet we want the horse to feel safe. We want the horse to feel brave. We want those around us to be inspired to do great things, but yet we're in mindsets of self-preserving negatives. Okay. Okay, so the first element stems off of another great quote that I'm not calling my own, which is, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. The beginning of this work, guys, is to be able to understand the way you think, the way you set intention, the motive of your mind, because your mind starts to move your energy. If you're in an anxious, negative state, again, your energy is going to be closed off. As we can start understanding the way our minds work, Dr. Peters was giving us so much clarity on that, and he has done so much work in this area. I look at it in a simple way for myself, and we observe that the mind is an organ, and the mind is not necessarily trying to make you thrive. Your mind is trying to keep you alive. So it doesn't necessarily care what system you run, as long as it's going to keep you from dying. Okay, this is going to be the higher form of it. So what happens is, as we start to observe that what you program in your mind is a combination of thought plus charge equals memory and how you're going to respond. So what you think about and what you charge. So if from a self-preserving space, if something happens and then your body charges on it, your mind is going to store that thought with that charge to replicate that in the future to keep you safe. So you can see how the self-preserving elements can use that organ to keep you safe, but not necessarily help you thrive. But that very organ can also allow you to thrive, which is the cool part. Okay? Neuroplasticity is becoming common, this idea that you can use what's going on in your mind to your favor and to your success. So as we get to a place where we can understand, how about I charge what I desire? How about I start to think about the things I want and I live within them until I can feel them as real and true? Robyn set the tone this morning by beginning that process, okay? And that is a thing we can do. But where do most of us charge? What do most of us charge? Okay? We charge the things we're worried about. We charge the things we're anxious of. We worry about judgments and fears and all of these pieces, which again, does it cause us to be open and ready to feel and engage the space, or does it close us off? Okay, it closes us off. So the first idea that we're talking about is, as we start to begin working on our inner workings, understanding the organ of your mind and how you can use it to service connection to space becomes a primary element of knowledge. We must get to a place where you can understand how to use your thoughts, charge your energy on purpose, and begin existing in the space as a frequency can move out. Everything, I just informed you of my Canadianness, didn't I? Yeah. I felt that. I felt that. Wow, that's crazy. Okay. Sorry, back on track here. So as we begin to do that, we start to understand that we can move frequency. And what do you think, in the universal language, the primary form of connection is frequency? Okay, you have the ability to feel frequency, to release frequency, and that's what your horses get. Okay, so it's a very cool opportunity for us to start expanding to our horses by doing a work and using what we have to start building connection instead of creating tensions. Now, for myself, the practice is a couple things. To get to this place where we can understand what's going on within us, this element of meditation is a big deal to me. Now, you all don't recognize, but you're all professional meditators. It's just that most of us meditate on sucky things, okay? Like, you're rolling your brain. Your brain programs by what you loop it on. Okay, and to get to a place where we can be open and more connected, getting mindful of what you meditate on and building energy and feelings and thoughts that you desire becomes a crucial piece to entering this space where you can actually communicate outside your body. So becoming mindful of that is important. So meditation is a big deal. Stillness is a big deal. Okay? Also, sometimes we need to go deeper. Sarah was sharing so much about this, about the therapy side of things. Sometimes we need to get more help so that we can really know what's going on within us and turn that corner. That's been a big deal for me. And then mentorship is another thing. Getting someone that you can bounce your thoughts off of. So somebody can actually pull you up and say, whoa, the thought you have right now, we need to shift this. Because if we don't, well, all of us believe our thoughts are perfect. Really, right? Okay, the second element is authentic expression. Now, if we can get to a place where we can become more mindful of the way we move frequency within our bodies, and we can start doing this on purpose in positive ways, it starts to allow us, our energy, to move out in a positive frequency. Okay? As we move to the second stage, this is now a little bit more active. And authentic expression is primarily set by authenticity and vulnerability. Okay? Authenticity is about the recognition that you are tremendously unique and that you are needed in this world, and you being you is important for everyone around you. But most of us have a very big challenge to be ourselves. And why? Well, we don't want to be judged. We don't want to be looked at funny. Okay? We don't want anyone to kind of make us feel uncomfortable. So then generally what do? Do we live authentically? Or do we scope the moment and decide what we need to be and do that? Okay, most of us do this. Okay, what do you think that does to your frequency? What do you think that does to the energy that you give off into the space? What do you feel like our horses feel? Do they sense a confidence within us? An okayness in our being? Or do they sense that insecurity and that worry? Okay, so now what we're doing is we're preloading kind of anxiety in the space. And again, you see how these things start to pile up towards an inability to connect. Okay, I feel this in training a lot. People are trying to connect. They're trying to get with their horses, but it's like they're doing all the technical stuff, but they're just not getting there. Okay, and these are some of the things that I hope can help that. So authenticity leads right to vulnerability. Okay, and vulnerability, okay, Brené's been talked about lots, and I just think she's awesome. But vulnerability is not about winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. And this is a key element, guys, is that you can authentically be yourself, even if you have no control of what's going to be received on the other end of it. Okay, it's a very important piece because it allows you to authentically embrace who you are, okay, and be present in the space. It's a very big deal. Okay, vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. And when you can get to a place where your authenticity can be your primary focus, it takes a courage, okay, and that's where the beauty of vulnerability comes. And I want to look at vulnerability like it's a superpower, a gifting, not necessarily a weakness or an insecurity. All right. So as we get to this place where we are in the space, Okay? Being able to feel what's going on out there is tremendously important, and I just want to encourage all of you to practice it. Try and be in the space. Spend time where you are authentically reaching into the space and having the ability to connect. As we do this, it starts to build bridges. It starts to allow the world to feel you. And when we practice this, the practice is, are you expressing who you are, your values? Are you able to express love? Are you able to be truly yourself? Okay? So this is really a big deal because it sets a tone. It sets a tone for what you can feel and what the world feels from you. Okay? Think, what do we want our horses to feel? What kind of connection do you want them to sense from you? Okay? So if we're not practicing this, guys, if we're not actively practicing, because if you just reach for your horse and you just try, you're trying to, but yet in this other area, we're closed off and we're worried and we're anxious. You see, these two things do not connect. So it's actually not just a thing that you just keep practicing with your horse to try to be more connected. It's a thing you must begin to live. And this is the beautiful connection of personal development or personal growth inside of this insightful element of the universal language, which is this beautiful flow between all of us. And think about the space, think about the beauty, think about the feelings here of as we start all to do that more. Okay, with each other, it creates elevation and growth. Okay, and with our horses, it starts to create a beautiful, safe space. Okay, and that sets a tone for being able to do hard things. All right? Now, the third one is felt interaction. And I find this is to be one that a lot of people struggle with. Okay, so now we're understanding our mind and we're working at our thoughts and we're trying to charge up the things we desire. We're trying to focus on gratitude and love and the things we want. That's starting to change our energy from the inside. We're starting to authentically present ourselves to the world. We're letting our horses feel us. We're letting other people feel us. But what happens when you bump up against another's energy? Okay, this is another element, guys. Because when you start to, what happens if you bump up against somebody who doesn't agree with you? Or a horse that's struggling? Do you have the ability to just stay? Can you just be in the space? Okay, so I encourage all of you to kind of consider this. As we now begin to think about the felt connection, this is where the highest form of effect happens. It's when the bubbles touch. It's when the energies connect. What happens there, that's where the richness is experienced. That's where you're going to find the value of the work you do. Because this doesn't happen at the horse necessarily. Okay, you're going to experience the work that you're doing, and you're going to reap the benefits of it, or you're going to observe the struggles of it when you get to that point. Okay, so I just want to break this third element down a little bit more. And this ability to feel each other, to be able to connect to each other, to me, is the essence of all of the work in the athletic work and the empowerment work. But first is that we must engage in mindful, energetic interactions. When you are connecting, you must be mindful that you're not just doing a thing. You're not just making the horse move. You're not just using your words. Okay? When you're interacting, you are bringing yourself to the table. You must show up and be felt. If you want the type of connection where you can feel those resonances not just in moments, but as the primary form of your communication, you must proactively engage yourself and show up. We must pay attention to the point of interactions where energies touch, because most of us are triggered by these points. We feel energy touch, and what does it do is it triggers defensiveness, because in times when we felt that and someone did a thing that harmed us, or maybe our horse got big, it triggers self-preservation and guardedness. So we feel those moments and then we retract. So I encourage you to just feel those moments and be with them. Can I simply be with what is on the other end? Can I just let it happen? Can something be up or down or happy or sad and I can just be there with them? Okay, what this does is this allows you to become very powerful because you're not controlled by the waves. You just are. The calmer the connection, the more information can flow through the space. And this is where the universal language in this space becomes very insightful. We learn a lot from things that are out there that just seem to come to us. Okay, it's a very, very cool thing. And then slowly, this is what builds the connection. This is what builds the communion, because now the horse is reaching for the feeling, and so are you. We are reaching for feel, guys, okay? But if our bodies are proactively trained to guard instead of reach, what happens, or to be in the space, it's almost like we can't feel. And this is a saying that's out there, is you can't teach feel. You either have it or you don't. And I honestly feel like that's not the case. We all feel. That's why we're here. Okay, we want to feel, we want to connect. All right. So the intimacy of authentic connection opens the gateway for soulful information to flow freely. Okay. The intimacy of authentic connection opens the gateway for soulful information to flow freely. As we become more authentically open in our space, information starts to move. I'm amazed at the amount of times, and I'm sure other presenters and some of you here have felt this, that when you're in that space, you're just surprised by what comes out of you. You're surprised by the interactions, and then crazy things happen that you never experienced. You just didn't set it up, okay? Because that's what starts to happen in the space of safety and openness. So in these three pieces, the first is to become more mindful of yourself. Okay, become mindful of what you do. Not focusing on what the outside world does, not focusing on judging the world, but becoming mindful of your own thoughts and your own energy. Focus on an authentic connection to your own space. Be present in your space. Show up. Be you. The bravery of this sets a tone for all things around you to start feeling the same way. And this sets the tone for empowerment. This sets the tone for a horse to feel like they can be empowered because they feel you doing it. Okay, that's leadership. And the third is then to be able to feel the interaction, to feel the edge and just be present and let another thing feel you without feeling like you need to bounce off of it or it has to be okay for you to be okay. You see, gaining the confidence within ourselves to lead our own deal. So I want everybody to ask themselves just three primary questions as you're thinking of these pieces. The first is, how am I within myself? Okay? How are you within yourself? How are you responding today? When you're with your horse, what's going on within you? Take stock of that. Because that's the first piece that changes the flow of your energy. Instead of in, we now start to be able to expand and feel. How authentically can I show up in my world? It's a really important question. How often are we playing the games of the world? Or how often are you just being you? We must recognize that not one of you is the same. And that code was made because you have a unique gift to bring to the world. Okay? Like, really hear that, guys. Because that level of connection starts to open you to add value to the world. It allows who you are and your individual giftings to start excelling and be cultivated. Okay? And then third, how do I respond when I feel and sense others? Okay, these three elements allow us to start engaging in a way where we can feel the world, we can interact with it, the world can feel us, we can be seen, okay? We can see because we can connect. Some of you have watched the movie Avatar, and you know when they connect and they say, I see you. Okay, I feel that so richly because I feel like that's what this is when we get with our horses, we want to feel them. We want them to feel us. We want to be able to show up and allow that moment to be rich and true. And when that's the essence of our techniques and our work, guys, it has a different impact. So much of training for so many of us is we've bounced off of the desire. Anybody that has soulful desire for connection generally struggles with a dominance-based training style. So then what happens is now instead of this, we're way over here and we want relationship and we seek it. But what about the heart to be able to take that relationship and then transform the perspectives of training with that mindset? To use the universal perspective to empower, to connect, to be present, but then go do things. Okay, and that's my greatest desire and my greatest hope for all of you, is that you never give up on your dreams because you have struggled with how things are done. How about we transform the way things are done? How about we change that? And that doesn't come by us backing away. It doesn't come by us backing away, but taking that state and that way of being and going out there and chasing your dreams. One more thing. Do I have time? Okay, I've already blown my cover that I really like The Alchemist. If anyone hasn't read it, you should read it. Alchemy is the idea of taking metal and turning it into gold. The way to get more connected to the space, to the world, to our animals, to each other, is to get to a place where we can actually feel what's going on inside of us and feel the moments that are metal, okay? And begin transforming them, whether that means that we need help to do so or that we can be with that space and we can feel it melt away and that we can turn those moments into gold by how we handle our own inner tensions, our own self-preserving thoughts is how we transform our own perspectives into gold. And I think that we all have a desire to be alchemists. We all have this desire to connect to the earth in the true form, in the currency that is along the earth, that we're all inspired to be within. And I feel like the heart of the alchemist is to do so, but it comes by how we deal with the tensions that we feel. How engaged can we transform them into gold? As we begin to understand these pieces in ourselves, we start to enter a space where we can actually feel and connect. Okay, guys? And this is the universal language. So thank you for hearing my message. I hope that was helpful.